Hello again and welcome to Forum for a Better Understanding. In all the other 289 editions of this program, we've never actually had an episode like the one we're going to do today. What we're talking about is the California crisis of budget. But we're not going to look at it as a financial problem or an economic issue, but rather a moral statement. What is it that churches, what is it that people of faith, what is it that people who believe can do to not react to it or respond negatively to it, but creatively, positively, actively? For that effort, we have a wonderful panel that has been assembled by my co-producer of this program, Reverend Carol Bean, who is a Lutheran pastor and is the senior organizer for Clergy and Laity United for Economic Justice. To her side, we bring in the superintendent from Fresno County Office of Education, Larry Powell, and across from me, a new friend, Norma Forbes, who works with Healthy Communities Access Partners here in Fresno. I wonder if they could each begin, our panelists, by telling us why this issue of the moral quality of our budget is so important to each of you individually. Carol.
Well, as a leader in the church, obviously we care about issues of poverty, compassion, fairness. Those issues are always on the forefront. But I think for me, what I've seen awaken as people come to clergy asking, what do I do about paying my bills and my health care and my house is being closed? And we're beginning to see it revealed exactly what God says is how interconnected we are. And I really believe that the economy and how we deal with our budgets reveals who we are as a community and as a nation.
Thank you very much. Larry, superintendent, where does it hit you?
Well, our families are the ones that are impacted. Our job is to educate kids, give them an opportunity for a great future. The problem is that families become disintegrated when they don't have resources. When more pressures are put on families, we end up with families that fight with each other, moms and dads that don't get along. The economic pressure stresses the entire fabric of a family. So I'm not looking at just the budget cuts, teachers gone, I can't go out for sports, I can't do those kinds of things. But what happens very clearly is the family begins to disintegrate, the moral fabric of the society begins to disintegrate, and everybody loses. I want kids being educated very well, but they need to be in healthy, productive homes to do that.
Thank you, Larry. Norma, from your point of view.
Well, children are our future, and we really believe, I personally believe, that as a society, we need to protect them, we need to support our families in being able to nurture them. We want children to be able to lead a full, productive, healthy life, and these budget cuts really are negatively impacting the ability of the healthcare system to do that.
Concretely, Carol, looking at the broadest picture of this, where do you want to begin our conversation?
Well, I think for me, one of the most difficult parts is I see a society that pits people against each other. And in the debates that we have around the budget, what I see is business is pitted against community, social services, jobs, that we somehow say that we can't have a strong economy unless we cut out those who are the most needy, unless we stop investing in schools and healthcare, and that we just keep pouring money into those who are going to who have the most money in the first place. So I'm most concerned about our businesses having a culture that's pitted against community health and the common good.
Larry, as an educator, and we have a little chart to maybe help, where are you seeing this concretely in your work every day?
Well, we're going to lose teachers, and teachers are the first line of defense with students in a lot of ways, of giving them hope, giving them a sense of where they can go, helping them understand the world that they live in, connecting them to their families even. And we have a lot of issues with the multicultural side of things as well, because we're very diverse. but we're looking at all kinds of extra co and curricular activities being cut. We're looking at benefits for teachers being cut, which means the really good teacher is going to look other places for jobs. And so I've spent a lot of money training somebody to do a really good job. Now I'm losing them. So we're losing a lot of the progress that we've made over the last 4 to 8 years is going right down the tubes with these budget cuts.
Norma, from the Health and Social Services, there is a little chart also. Can you help us appreciate every day what you in your work are seeing the wall you're against?
Well, we're seeing more and more children that do not have health insurance. We've been working for 5 years to be able to get a targeted 35,000 children in Fresno County into health insurance programs. And we're losing ground. Families are unemployed, and more children are without health insurance benefits at all. I also really see that this budget forces not just the business focus and competition, Carol, but also that we have education pitted against the healthcare system. Right. And what we try to do is look at the children as a whole. That the funding should be so that education and health are both essential elements for a child. And it really splits that into we're all fighting for scarce resources, which isn't helping the families.
Now, compounding those two issues of education and healthcare, there's something you might want to bring up, Carol, with your chart about the elderly and where we're hurting people at both ends of their lives.
Yeah, and I think there's a graph, I'm hoping that we can show it, but this just looked at 9 California counties. And it talks about, it says up there, IHSS recipients. Basically, those are seniors who rely upon in-home health care services. And the thing that's frightening about this, and this is only 9 counties in California, almost 200,000 recipients over age 65, that the cuts that are being proposed by Governor Schwarzenegger would reduce services so greatly that 90% of those of that 200,000 would lose the ability to have help to shop for food. 89% lose the ability to have basic services that they can get. 94% lose the ability to have someone with them who lives alone. Wow. And then another 86%, if you're cognitively impaired, someone to help you. Now, what's frightening about this is that it seems as if we're penny wise and pound foolish. Because if we're going to cut these kinds of services for our elderly, for our disabled, then they no longer can stay at home. And if they can't stay at home, where do they go? They go to nursing homes. And then the state is picking up the tab to pay for those who are in nursing homes. And I know that people are healthier and happier, and it's cheaper for us, which is, you know, for me as a pastor, I don't want to talk just about it being cheap, but it saves us money not to do this. So the fact that they would propose cutting every single home care service worker, which then also reduces jobs, is absolutely madness in order to protect those who don't want to pay a little bit more on the wealthiest end for some of the services that others need.
You know, Jim, what's happening is we've got a lot of families that are facing multiple stressors. In the past, they had one issue they had to deal with. Maybe the dad would lose his job for a day or two. We have a hopelessness that's taking over. 40% of our families on the west side of Fresno County are unemployed. The poverty level is extremely high. All of those kinds of stressors take and reduce a family in a lot of ways because they get upset with each other and all of the things that happen. And then when you have no hope, like right now, it's hard to see when the end of this is coming. I've been through all of these cycles, 40 years in the business. And now we're looking at what do we do when there's no light at the end of the tunnel? How do you keep people with hope at a time that hope seems to be disappearing? And our kids are growing up with a thing called the homeland generation. That's the generation that is living with terrorism and fear and a malaise that has not existed before. That's going to be a huge thing. And people have to step up and say, hey, I'm willing to put some money in to help things out. I call on all churches. The Bible says give 10% for a tithe and an offering above that. Let's step up and do our job, and so we can get some relief out there. It doesn't take the burden off of government, but boy, we need to step up personally, because what we do personally has a lot to do with what we'll vote for as well.
You know, unfortunately, we have gotten to the half point of this fantastic program, so I want to thank our original panel for being here today. We'll be back in 1 minute, sharing with you more moral insights into a possible light at the end of this horrific tunnel that we're in right now. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the second part of our program, which is talking today about the California budget crisis as a moral issue. We have two new panelists who are with us today. In the center of our table, we have the Reverend Dr. Louis Logan, all the way from LA, who will tell us his commitment to this project. And across from me is an old friend, not that he's old, but he's a friend that I know for a long time, and that would be Father Mike.
KNXT thanks all its loyal viewers and respected businesses who have supported your Catholic television station. Now you can support KNXT with program underwriting by having your name, your company's name, or organization associated with your favorite program. Detailed information about you or your company will appear before and after each program or day part you select. Keep the quality and spiritual message alive and make a difference. Call 559-488-7440 today or go online at knxt.tv to find out more about program underwriting on KNXT.
Multicultural and campesino ministry. Where do you see it tying in with budget cuts?
Well, one of the things that fascinated me with Larry speaking a little earlier today was Larry was commenting about how many stressors are placed on people's lives. And one of the things, stressors that I find in the ministry that I'm doing, is I'm working with people who are immigrants or recent arrival, whether they are from Latin America or from Asia or for other parts of the world. And the stress that's placed on families by being in a new country, in a new place, understanding the lives of their children, their lives here, it's placing a stress on society that these budget cuts are going to affect them, especially.
It's not only important for Christians, but as you know, it's also very important within the Muslim faith. We have to believe in Jesus as the message of God, as the Spirit of God, and as the prophet of God, and also the one who brought a lot of miracles. Many of these miracles are mentioned in the Quran and in the New Testament, and some miracles are mentioned in the Quran, additional miracles mentioned in the Quran. He's mentioned in the divine book of Muslims many times, and also his mother mentioned in the Quran. Maybe she is the only woman that has been mentioned in the Quran more than any other women, including Muslims.
Oh my.
So the word Mary is mentioned more than any other name and female name in the Quran.
And more so than the Bible also.
Yeah, because Mary is not mentioned all that much in the New Testament, so she
There
gets...
is a chapter actually named after her, chapter Mary or chapter Miriam, that talks about her life, her birth, her parents, and then about the birth of Jesus and confirm the virgin birth of Jesus. It talks about the lineage of Jesus to Prophet Abraham. So a very, and I think I shared with you at a conference the story of Jesus in the Quran.
People were fascinated at what you shared to the catechists 2 years ago at the Congress, at the Ministry Day. You just shared tremendous insights. People were ecstatic at finding out that Islam has such a reverence for the mother of Jesus and Jesus as the prophet. Now about Fatima, we all think of Fatima. It's a beautiful name. A lot of Portuguese girls are named Fatima. But it also has a tremendous importance to Islam and also a connection with Miriam. Tell us about this.
What is interesting is that a very popular name among Muslims is Maryam, Mary. I have within my family many girls named Maryam or Mary. And also Fatima is, of course, very popular name within the Muslims. But I got to know that even here in Central California, I got to meet a lot of ladies named Fatima. And as you know, I just came from a trip from South America, and I met many girls, and they would introduce themselves as Fatima. So that was very interesting for me. A couple of our tour guides were named Fatima, and I saw also stores named Fatima. So that was, for me as a Muslim, that was very amazing thing to do. Jesus is the mother Mary is the mother of Jesus, peace be upon him. Fatima is the daughter of our prophet, and she is a mother of two imams, the wife of the first Imam, who is the first successor after the Prophet, according to Shi'a Muslims. Ali. And then two of his sons. So she is the mother of two Imams, the second one and the third one. And then the 9 Imams who come after the third are from the third Imam. So she is considered the mother of 11 Imams, and she is wife of one. Amazingly, her father, the Prophet, called her my mother. She is my mother. But physically she was his daughter, but because he lost his mother at a very early age, and she was caring about him, he was tortured during his ministry. He would leave home and come back, and they would the pagans would throw trash on him. So she was little daughter. When he comes back home, she tried to clean him, give him comfort. So he called her my mother because of the comfort she used to. And she is the connection of the Imams, the 11 Imams, with the Prophet. In the same similarity, we look at Mary. She is the connection of Jesus with the human race and also with the Prophet Abraham. So she is the connection between Jesus and other prophets. Similarly with Fatima, she is the connection of Imams and the Prophet. Both are female within a holy family. This is why we believe that in our faith, male and female, especially even in the holy families, they've been offered the same attribute and respect. This is why we believe in this. And also, we believe that Fatima, also with her father, has the position of intercession, what is called Shafa'ah. Shafa'ah in Islam is a little bit different than in Christianity. we believe that our prophet, God has given him this position that we go and ask him to ask God. Our prophet does not have the power to give us health or sustenance, but he can ask God to give us health and sustenance in whatever we ask him.
Which is pretty much, for those listening, what we would say saints do. And that brings up another word for us to share, is saints and martyrs. But you're saying that the prophet himself is not able to give benefits,
He's a
but
human.
he can intercede.
He is a human just like us, but God loves him, and because of his love, of God's love toward him, if he asked God, I'm sure God would not reject his request. So this is why when we ask the Prophet or Fatima, that they go and ask Allah for mercy, for forgiveness, for sustenance, for health, for whatever we ask, in this life. So I'm sure that is similar,
Very similar.
little bit similar in the Christian faith.
Especially Catholic, though, because what you said, Protestants might not, they don't really appreciate the place we have of saints. They find it almost, why would you put someone between yourself and God? But Islam finds it comfortable.
Shia Muslims. Shia Muslims and many also Sunni Muslims, they believe in the intercession of the Prophet. But still there are some Muslims who would say, no, we do not accept that. So, but most Shia Muslims and many Sunni Muslims, they believe the Prophet has the power of shafa'a. Shafa'a means that he would ask God to offer us forgiveness. Yes. One more thing that I would like to say about the similarities. Both Fatima and Maryam had their sons killed.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, Muslims, Imam Hussein, the third Imam, was slaughtered by a tyrant. He stood for justice. He stood against corruption. So this is a similarity. In a Christianity, Christians believe that Jesus was killed, and Mary actually noticed the crucifixion of her son. However, Quran would say Jesus has ascended, God has ascended Jesus to heaven. So these are the similarities between...
And they're major similarities because, in a sense, believe it or not, some of your teachings are closer to Roman Catholicism than Protestantism. I mean, it's funny, but it is, that you would have the understanding of the virgin birth and Jesus' coming back in time, being the Messiah.
That's right.
All of these are so Christian in an understanding. Reza, one thing I'm interested in right now is this concept of martyrdom, because that's another theme that the book develops, and it makes the point that Shia faith is really a very bold, almost a faith that comes from the underground, standing up for justice and willing to pay the price of witnessing for the faith. Tell us about martyrdom in Islam, in Shia Islam.
Well, first of all, I would like to mention in Islam and also within the Catholic tradition, martyrdom, I think right now is one of those words that's attributed too easily to people. A martyr, it doesn't mean that you go and blow yourself up somewhere. So with that out of the way, Islam does recognize the station of martyrs. Imam Hussein being one of them, and on top of that, all of the Imams in the line of the Prophet, other than the last one, who we believe is still alive with Jesus, were all martyred, either poisoned or killed by a sword. The idea that somebody is willing, for what they believe, to stand up and offer the most precious gift that they were given. We all have family, we were given families, life, breath, food, health, and maybe the best gift that anybody's been given is life, the opportunity to live. And that somebody would be willing to offer his life up to help ease the suffering of somebody else. That's the station of a martyr. The idea that somebody, because he loved God so much, he was willing to give up his life and in turn maybe make it easier on you and me to understand what God has in plan for us.
One other concept that is so important that I'd like both of you to unpack briefly, but we only have like 2 minutes, so it will be brief. The preeminent importance, it says, that we share, Catholics and Shia Muslims, the concepts of unity and community. It's as if we are both committed to those principles more than our alternative forms of our religions. More than others, Catholics are into this. More than others, the Shia Muslims are into this. Tell us about the unity community concept.
Well, in the Quran, there is a great emphasis on unity among Muslims especially, and also emphasizing on building positive relationship with other communities, with non-Muslims, peaceful relationship. And so unity is our foundation, that, and we actually practice this in our center, that we try to make our center open. We focus on this. We think this is a very fundamental part of our belief. Yes.
One other one, Reza, for you. This concern, it says, for the downtrodden and the oppressed and the world at large, which becomes institutionalized in the concept of, I guess, almsgiving, charity, zakat. We do it in Catholic Relief Services. We do it with Catholic Charities. We're committed to this. This is what we are. Sure. Islam, Shia Islam, is also wed to this concept. Tell us how it does it.
Muslims, Catholics, and so many other religions, they all acknowledge the responsibility that those who have for those who don't have. And that would sum it up. There's people who aren't blessed to have what we have, and it's our responsibility to share if we can. And even if you can't, share what you have and try to make this world, make the playing field a little bit more level.
Actually, Muslims are celebrating the Eid these days, the Eid of the end of month of Ramadan. And this is actually an act of sharing of what they devoted through the month of Ramadan toward the less fortunate. So it's another community event within the faith.
I want to thank Imam and Reza for sharing these important insights into their faith and for helping me appreciate my own even more. Thank you, and until next week, God bless.